Okay, I think we're good to go. I'm just gonna make sure that we're up on both streams. Yeah, we're up on. There we go. Twitch is okay. YouTube takes a couple extra seconds. Okay, I think we're good to go. Oh, there it is. We're up on both. Okay. Let's go to a coding view. Now, let's get started here. It's been a minute since I looked at this. I wanted to stream yesterday, but I had some crazy stuff come up at the office that I had to deal with all day into this morning. So I have no thought on what I'm going to do on this next. So we're just going to jump into it. Let's start by running what we have. So the last time we had gotten to the point that we were building this kind of a nice GUI version of the brand image generator. And the idea was that it's going to load up all of the JSON profiles in a table here. And that we're going to get some a preview down here. So when I'm looking at, when I have one of these selected, I'm going to see what it's generating right now. And that I'm going to have some configuration options up here for like loading a whole configuration, a whole set of this stuff, like any settings that get saved here. And I'm going to have some kind of profile rendering settings for each one of these. When I select it, we're going to see settings for it. And that's mostly important for thumbnails, title cards, anything like that that I want to use this thing to generate. Now we're going to have actions. We're going to have like a render all button. And at some point, if this is going well, I might actually evolve this tool towards being a little bit more general, so that you would define each of these profiles in terms of like a set of layers, and just it would, you know, make a set of layers available. So inside the settings for the profile, you go and be like, I want this layer and this layer and this layer, and put a few settings for each layer. And then we could really build each of these out of layers that each respect. They each know, each layer would have some code that knows how to respect like the size of the screen, the area of interest, and stuff like that. That might end up being a very general way to do it. And that would also help if I wanted to use it to make, say, like slides for a presentation. You know, like I would be able to go in here and make one that's specifically like presentation slide and give it an extra layer for like a bulleted list of content or something like that. So let's see, maybe a very natural thing to start by doing would be getting it to show the preview of what you have selected here. So how would I go about that? I'm going to need some kind of image element to go in here, and I'm going to need to listen to this action when you click. And when you click, I'm going to have to tell it like refresh preview. And then later when you go and edit these settings, each time you edit a setting, either there's going to be an explicit update button, or it'll just notice that you changed the setting and it'll update the preview automatically. Okay, so let's start with that. We got code here. Might take me a minute to get going and get oriented. First things first. Do we have what kind of class do we have available? We have some kind of image element class. Picture box control, specifically designed for displaying various image types. Okay. Both design time, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, see, it always wants to tell me how to do it using the designer. I don't care about that. So you can do it image.fromFile. But if this is just like an image object, then I can just pass it the one that I generated in memory. So that's probably the way that I want to go, unless it doesn't have one in memory. But I think we would just make it so that the action of the refresh preview actually goes and calls the render. Now maybe we could give it like a loading state, like while it's generating, that it would just pop up and be like, hey, I'm generating. If we wanted to make it really nice, another thing we could do is put it on let it do the render on a separate thread. Because otherwise, if I just call the render from the UI thread and it takes like 3 seconds to render, that's literally just going to lock up the UI. It's going to look like the application's frozen. Which isn't the worst thing in the world if it only takes a couple of seconds, but it is kind of ugly. Let's get it going the easy way first. Okay, so let's see. Let's make ourselves a profile manager, these controls. Image box. Doesn't like that. Picture box, that's what it's called. Preview picture box. So we can probably create that element at the beginning and we'll just reset its stuff. On it, profiles box, init profiles. Do we end up like in a init preview box? So in here is where we can be like and this one, so one of the things I want the preview to do, and I'm not exactly sure where, at what layer I'm going to manage this yet. If you're looking at an image of a particular dimensions, like a particular aspect ratio, I don't want the preview area to have to match that aspect ratio, and I don't want it to resize around because that's going to feel really janky. But I do. So what I would like to have the behaviors that it uses all the available space. So like if you shrink it really small, like vertically, then the picture is going to get smaller to fit inside that space. And if you pull it up large, then the picture is going to expand to fill that space. Until you pull it too large and its largest dimension is already maxed out on the width. And then it should just expand like blank space above and below. So one way that I could try to do that is like manually code it inside the controls for where this element is positioned, but I'm hoping it's going to have like a scaling mode that basically does that, because that's a very common behavior. So for the element itself, I'm going to give it docstyle.fill. And let the elements dimensions be larger, and then I'm going to see if there's some kind of scaling mode. Scales a logical bitmap value to its equivalent divided. I have no idea what that means. Scale scales the control and all child controls by the specified scaling factor. Okay, that's not really one either. It might just do what I'm talking about by default if I put an image of the wrong size in it. So it's just going to stretch. There's like a billion methods in here. We could also just ask the internet. Anchor, binding, border style, bounds, can select, capture, click, client, rectangle, container, create control, cursor chain. Yeah. That's going to take forever to look through here and find something. So would it be called like stretch? No. All right, let's just ask the internet. Use the size mode property and set it to one of the picture box size mode enumeration. Stretch image and zoom. Okay. So this is what I want, size mode. Alright, let's see. Auto size. Picture box is sized equal to the size of the image that it contains. We don't want that. Stretch image. Image within picture box is stretched or shrunk to fit the size of the picture box. That might be what we want depending on how it determines that. Center image. Image displayed in the center if the picture box is larger than the image. If the image is larger than the picture box, the picture is placed in the center of the picture box and the outside edges are clipped. So that's not what we want. We don't want it to clip. Normal mode, picture is in upper left corner. The image is clipped if it's larger than the picture. No. Zoom, the size of the image is increased or decreased, maintaining the size ratio. That's what we want. We want it to, that's exactly the behavior that I'm describing. So we can set it to zoom mode. And then at first, maybe let's give it also like a background color. So right now I have not set any image into it. What we should see, if I actually called this method, is that now this box is black. So that's going to be the place where our preview would actually show up. And it should respect whatever's here. So now let's see if we can get, I don't want to set any image in here in the init. I want a function. So we gotta load profiles. This one's gonna be like refresh preview. And so in refresh preview, the main thing we're gonna want to do is actually take, so we're gonna want to find the selected profile out of all the profiles that are loaded. And we're going to want to, okay, so what's a good way? Once we know the profile, then we're going to construct a brand renderer and call render on it and get the image output and set that on the picture box. So first of all here, I only loaded this and kept it around enough to load the tables, but we actually still want these profile objects. We could key them on unique file names. That would probably be okay, because the file system is going to make sure that you only have one file for each name. You could put like the same name property in multiple of them. So let's use the file name as keys, and let's keep ourselves a dictionary. Put this. That doesn't, because I probably need to, yep, there we go. Get us a profiles by file name. We can set that up here. Yep. Okay. Now, each time we do load profiles, we're going to try to load the new ones. At the same time as we clear the rows, we're also going to say we're going to clear our dictionary of the existing profiles, and each time here when we create a row first, we're going to add a dictionary entry, profile.filename, to the profile object. So now we should actually have these. Here we're going to want, we probably want a general method to get the selected profile object that uses that. We're going to give it question mark nullable because there might not be a selected one. And we configured our thing to not allow multi-selection. We have multiple like enabled checkboxes, but we only have one selection. So here, the profiles table. So we have selected rows. Okay. So it's going to be some kind of row collection. All right, so if there's 0 selected rows, that means nothing's selected. So in that case, we give back a null. We don't have anything selected. Well, we have to check the size again, because if somehow they're leaked in here that there's like multiple values in the selected rows thing, that's fine. We just take the first one. We don't have to do anything special if there's multiple. So now we should be able to grab at the 0 index. And what type is this? A data grid view row? How do we get a column value? Get error text. Get state, get time. Data grid view row. Let's check. There's cells collection. Ah, okay. Using the column index or column name. Okay, so that's where up here when we gave these things column, each one we gave it a header text, which is what it displays, and we also gave it a name. So I can actually index it by these names that I put in. So the file name one that I want is called file. So we can get selected file name equals selected row.cells. And here, yeah, I have the option. I can give it an integer index or the column name. Let's do the column name because that's less likely to change. Cells. So this one has value, and because it's generic, it can be any value, but I know that it's a string column, so I'm just gonna cast it to a string. Converting null literal possible null. I mean, I could check like if it has. Maybe we should check that first. Selected row. Selected row cells file name dot value. Okay, then here we can check if I hate that name. Okay. So if it's null or not, could use the is keyword. In those cases, we're going to return null if we couldn't get it for any reason. Otherwise, we're going to have file name is the string cast of file name object. And now it doesn't complain about that because the compiler is smart enough to know that we already verified it's a string. Now, once we have the file name, then the last thing we have to do is check profiles.filename. Let's do a try get. Try get file name. Profile. So if we don't get that, okay. So this is kind of like a matter of style, like because we're at the end and we're not going to check anything else, one thing that we could do here is remove this not. We could say if there is a profile, then return the profile, otherwise return null. I like to structure things in terms of like breakout conditions, basically. Let's condense this a little bit. File name object equals this. I like to structure things so we have check a breakout condition, return null, check a breakout condition, return null, check a breakout condition, return null. And if we're good at the end, then we return the value. That just helps me logically navigate around the function. So like our our early breakout cases are all the ones where it didn't work, and our final return is the one where it did work. So we've got that. So now when we call refresh preview, we could say get a selected profile, okay, and this could be null. So actually the very first thing we want to do is clear out whatever image is there, because we want to do that whether we find a new profile or not. So we'll just set it to null, I assume. Okay, so first we're going to null it out no matter what. Then we're going to try to get this. If for whatever reason there wasn't a brand profile selected, then again we break out early. And but here we've already cleared out the old image. So whatever the selected state is now, if we try to refresh preview with nothing selected, it's just going to be black again. And then we can do... Next we're going to render. This is the part that I might put on another thread afterward. But for now we're just going to do it in the current thread. Profile renderer, what do they call it? Brand renderer. Does this take the profile as a constructor? Oh, what's wrong with that? Name profile. I'm actually just going to call it profile. It's obvious that it's the selected one. Okay, so we create a renderer, and we get there preview bmp equals render, and it takes nothing. And then, yeah, at the end, we're just going to set the preview box image to the preview bitmap. Okay, so then the last thing we need to do is now we need to actually invoke this somewhere. Now I'm actually going to remove this testing line because that could actually mess us up. We shouldn't need it anymore. So after I load it, presumably this is going to result in one that's automatically selected by the table that got built in init profiles table. So I do the default sizing. Let's see if we can get call refresh preview at the end of the initialization. Is that going to work? Well, it has one selected. Did not appear to put anything there. Maybe it doesn't actually recognize that as a selected one. So the main way to do that is just going to be that we have to handle the click. So when we set up this table, the profiles box and our profiles table. Okay, so we add a bunch of columns to it. Probably don't need these new lines now. So we configure the table, we add the columns, and then there's some way that we could say selection changed. I think that's an event. This is like the object and this should be E, the event args. It doesn't really matter, I don't plan to use those. There's only one profile table that's calling this thing. So I don't really care which object generated or what the, maybe from the args I might care if it knows which one is selected, otherwise I could just, actually for the purposes of this thing, it does not really matter which one is selected. Because we're just going to go and look up the selection anyway when we do refresh profiles. So we could probably just say, try to refresh preview in here. So anytime the selection changes on the table. Well, this caused this code to run. Column named file name cannot be found. Oh yeah, because we just said the column is actually named file. Well, that caused this code to be run. So I guess when it runs right after the constructor, it doesn't recognize that it has a selected profile. Hey, look at that. We got it to render. And it's doing our stretch to fit properly. So we can resize this stuff around. And it's keeping the image the best size it can. Ah, there's the lag I'm talking about. See, I click, and like 2 seconds, 3 seconds later, that took a long time. It's taken a long time to actually render our image. But it's cool that it's showing up. And we can full size it for like a nice kind of a preview. Make the table smaller. So shrinking and moving it around is easy because it's just resizing the image that it generated. But actually causing it to generate an image takes a second. So probably what we want to do is give this thing a loading state. So it can just like show a spinning wheel or something. And I'll have this renderer run on a separate thread. And when the renderer is finished, then I'll have it come back and update the profile. And of course, as soon as we do the multi-threading thing, then we have to worry about the fact that maybe the user like clicked a different one while this one's still running. So we might want to manage that kind of carefully. Again, we'll just do it the easy way first. Okay, how do I want to set that up? So I could just make like an image that just says loading, like a loading preview image. Or I could hide the element while it's previewing. What kind of tools does I have some kind of spinning wheel that comes out of the box. Typically implemented using an animated GIF in a picture box or a custom drawn control while ensuring that long-running operations. Oh, okay. So that's garbage. Probably I just want to give it a thing that actually says loading. Maybe, in fact, what we could do, because we're going to black this out, that means it's going to be black. I wonder if we could actually have a like a label on top of this that we just show and hide that says loading, and it gets like centered to that content. Yeah, we could probably do it like that. And the label itself is going to have like black background. So we could do preview picture box. We could make a preview loading label. And then how are we going to add and remove it? Do like, is there a way to give a control a hidden state? Setting its visible property to false or calling its hide method, they do the same thing. Does it also have, yeah, has a show? Okay, so we can do that. So that stops us from the other way we'd have to do this is like keep a handle to the parent element. And when we want to show the loading thing, we add the label to the parent element. And then when we're done loading, we remove it. But it's way easier if I can just add it to the parent element at the beginning and then call like hide and show on it. So when we init the preview box, we got the picture box first. Now the other question is which of these controls goes on top in like the Z order, because we could end up with a label that's beneath the image element and we don't see it. It's determined by the order in which controls are added, right? Principle is last in, first drawn on top. Well, that's confusing. It should be the last drawn. The last control out of the controls is the top of the Z order. Okay. so we just want to make sure that when we attach that we do the preview box first, and we do the label second. Because if we do the label second, then that's going to get drawn on top of the picture box. Make your label. We also want it to take up the available space. Have it say like generating. I need to give it center. I want the text to be like centered in the area that's assigned to the element. Let's make it black. So actually it's probably just going to cover up the image thing. That's fine. Color, so the color of the text. Let's give it like a light gray text. Not text align. Oh, okay, so we got options for everything. So I got one like a middle center. Cool. We can do, what else do we need it to do? It's probably sufficient. Oh, I was gonna set like maybe the font or whatever. String family. Let's use that byte bounce again. So we're using that everywhere. And the size, like, I don't know, 40. And then let's add it. Okay, so we added the preview. Now we just want to make sure that it starts in the hidden state. I'm doing that after I add it to the control, just in case that matters. So then when we select, when we refresh the preview, first we want to put this on, we want to set this to null. Now let's do it like this. So we null out the image, then we get the selected profile. If for some reason we don't get the profile, we don't want to do anything. So let's do the step here. Let's say, so let's show the loading label. Then we'll make our renderer render our bitmap and set the image to it. And then after that, we'll hide the loading label again. I'm going to leave that alone. So in theory, even here running on the same thread, we should see the loading text get shown. Oh, it didn't do it. I wonder if it's not doing it because it's a good question. Why isn't it doing that? Let's see. If I don't add the picture box, do we see the preview label at all? No, we still completely don't see it. What's going on with that? Okay, preview box controls.add. So this is a group box. We could add multiple controls to it, right? Well, right now that doesn't even matter because we add the preview loading label. If I don't call hide on it to start, then we should absolutely see it. I still don't see it. What the hell is going on with that? Okay, we wanted it to fill. We set its text. We set its font. We gave it a black background. Why isn't that showing up? Right now it should be the only element in there and it should not be hidden. Oh, I swear I hate messing with this Windows form stuff. So we created it as a new label. What's wrong with it? Why is it not showing up? We should be adding it to the preview box. We're adding the correct one. We didn't like typo it to a different one. Is it the font? It can't find the font. No, that didn't do anything. How strange. Let's just ask. The visibility property hidden by other controls. Oh, you know, we should also, as long as we're going to test it, make sure that I'm not calling the hide down here because we know that this runs immediately. Let's just stop calling the show and hide completely. Surely this thing gets added, it's there. There we go, okay. So there's a generating preview. So now let's step one by one through having it do these other things again. Let's make sure the byte bounce is there. So we use the font. Okay, there we got a big ass generating preview. Make the text a little bit smaller. That's cool, it actually even like word wraps or whatever. It doesn't have to be that huge, maybe half that size. Alright, that's plenty. So we got our little generating preview label. That's cool. Now let's add the picture box back behind it. And right now we're not mutating the visibility. The picture box is showing up on top of it. So that's no good. Does this have like a Z order? Bring to front. Brings the control to the front of the Z order. Maybe we want to do that after. Because here now, so we've added the preview box, or sorry, we've added the picture, we've added the loading label. Now I'm going to tell the label to come to front. So now I shouldn't have to care which of these actually gave it the Z order on top. Okay, so we see it there. Which banner? Oh, but now because it's on front and we're not hiding it, we don't have any background at all. Now we're never going to see the image that it generates under, but that's fine. Because what should happen, all right, so let's not hide it initially. Let's do, I wonder if show and hide messes up the Z ordering. I wonder if when I show it again, it comes back up like under. So I don't hide it at first. Here we come up, we're showing this one. I don't see it appear at all. Let's see, what else could I do to mess with this? Can I do, each time I show it, do I need to do bring to front? That would be really goofy, but it might. Maybe like internally show and hide just removes it and re-adds it to the control, and it re-adds it like at a different Z order. So maybe every time I show I have to bring to front. That didn't make it appear. But I think it's also just fully, like, it's frozen when I'm generating one of these. Like, it doesn't do anything. And so it might have just not updated the UI. What do I do? If I do a thread.sleep, it's not going to work. Well, alright. Before I get too much more messed up about that, I'm just going to get this happening on the separate thread. And for now, we'll do it the really simple way. This is probably not how we're going to end up doing it, because we want to be able to, like, cancel a previous one if they click another one while it's still rendering. Let's do like task.run and put this stuff in there. So task.run, I think, is going to make sure it runs on a different thread while this one can continue. And at the end, after that's completed, that's when I want to hide the preview label again. Just for fun, let's see if that does anything. You know, it might, yeah, it's going to throw an exception, because these ones, like where I set the image and run the hide, they have to be synchronized back onto the UI thread. If I try to manipulate anything about the UI state from off of that thread, then it gets messed up. So what I really want to do is, how do I give it a callback on the UI thread? And Marshall callback the UI thread from background thread using control.invoke or control.beginInvoke. Or you can use async await with a synchronization context. Run on UI thread, some action, this dot invoke required. Dot begin invoke. How do I know invoke required? Set a property of the form. That's kind of weird. Oh, maybe that's checking to see if it runs on the current thread. So run on UI thread, you pass it an action, then update status label, or I do some work, and then at the end, upload it on the thing. Okay. Okay, let's try to do something like that. Pretty much just do it exactly like that. So invoke required is a thing. It's a value indicating whether the caller must call an invoke method when making method calls to the control, because the caller is on a different thread. Okay. So if invoke required, what did it say? Is it a static method on control? Oh, you just say stop begin invoke. Okay. So you invoke it on like the forms thread. Otherwise, you can call it like that. We're done with these. Okay, so if invoke required, begin invoke, otherwise action. Let's just call this sync UI. So here we got a task.run that runs on a background thread, but at the end we want to say pass it an anonymous method that does these two steps. So now it should do the rendering on the background thread, but when it gets back here, it should call this, and this is going to check and see if it actually was running on a different thread, and if so, and do it there. Generating preview, Barton codes. Hey, there we go. So this one takes a long time, and notice we're not frozen now, and eventually when it's done, it works. So now my app is not locked up waiting for the generation to happen, which is super nice. Okay, so that's great. Now the only other messed up thing that's going on is I'm probably going to get it in a janky state if I click like a bunch of these at a time. Like it's not syncing like the preview text or whatever. So if I do it and give it enough time to finish, then it does what we expect. The YouTube one's probably huge. I wonder why this process memory is just stacking up back here. Wonder if there's something I'm like not releasing. There might be some kind of memory leak stuff to sort out later. Okay, so let's finish by just let's finish this task by coming up with a way to check if we're already rendering. Let's see. How do I want to synchronize that? So if this is running, we could just have this like a rendering thread, like a background thread that keeps doing wait or sleep. And then it'll see if its rendering task changes and like give up on the one it's doing and start on another one. That's one possible approach to it. Or we could just check if we have one of these that's still running. Might be a little bit messy with the thread transitions. What approach do I want to take here? Let's do like a currently rendering, maybe like a start rendering preview and cancel rendering preview. Maybe structure it like that. Maybe we just keep track inside this class of a boolean, like, what would we actually hang on to even cancel? Like the profile that we're currently rendering. This should take maybe just give it like an int request number. And then up here, let's give it some state. So we get like a current rendering request number. Next render num is 1. Okay. I'll do this way. So if we structure it like that, then what we'll say is as long as we're currently rendering 1, we'll keep the request number here. So I'm gonna pass this a render reg num. If we do stop rendering preview, now it's gonna get kind of messy. So we're gonna run this to do the generator. And then we're gonna check at the end. So maybe at the beginning we're gonna do walk on this. People say you shouldn't do walk on this because it's gonna cause deadlocks or whatever. I'm sure that's true. Whatever. I'll go ahead and take that advice right now. So let's go ahead and make ourselves a lock object for the rendering. And this is just going to be around managing the render recnum, so we're not like reading to it and writing to it at the same time. So here we're going to say current render recnum render. So that's going to work in either case. So either when we called this, if it was already done, then current render recnum was going to be -1. And if it was already working on something, then current render recnum is going to be the number for whatever it was working on. Actually, I don't even need to pass this in because I'm always going to generate it that way. So here we can say so here, this is always going to get, we're always going to update. In fact, we could just collapse it here. So lock the rendering thing, we're going to set the current rendering request number. Then we're going to start running this task on another thread. And at the end, inside the sync UI, so when it gets back, we're going to check, I see. But first we need to capture here. No, we do need this. Okay. So get a render recnum there. We're going to get a number here. And then we're going to set the current one to it. And then at the end, we're going to say if so it's going to be running this thing, and at the end it's going to check if this current one is still equal to the request that started this function call. And if it's not, then we do nothing. The reason we do nothing is because if this is different than when we started calling it, then it means that another preview has been clicked and it's kicked off a different one of these threads to go and render a preview. And when we get back, that's the one that we want to actually update the thing. And then otherwise, so then if it is, at least one of these is going to match, and it's going to come back and set the preview loading label. And if we get there, then we want to update the render recnum to be full, to be -1 again to indicate that we're completely done. Let's do it in the lock also. Okay, so set it back to -1. And that'll mean, so let's do a mental example here. Let's work through it the correct way. Yeah, for like both cases that we're going to handle. So one way is not rendering anything. It's not rendering a preview. We come into this function. You know, I actually didn't end up needing the stop rendering, because now it's just going to basically ignore. Everything's handled in here. So we can avoid calling it start and stop. Let's just call it render preview. And is it this one that we want to take the callback that runs on the UI thread? No, because we want to actually do stuff in there. That's fine. We'll just call it render preview. So when we refresh preview, we're going to come through here, show the preview generating text, and bring it to the front, and then we're going to call it render preview on the profile, and that'll do everything necessary at the end. You know, I guess instead of calling it as a separate function, now we can just put this in there. This could just be part of refresh preview. We don't even have to call it separately. And now all our logic for it is in one place. Okay, so let's think this through in the normal case. So in the normal case, nothing is going on, which means current render reg num is -1. We come through here. We decide that we have a profile we want to render. We check here, render reg num. So we actually allocate a request for this rendering. So this starts at 1. So because it's done ++, that means it's going to be 1, but then this one's going to be left 2 afterwards. The next one is going to be 2. So this is 1. We set current render reg num to 1. Then we start running this task. Task.run. So then inside there we create the renderer and call render on the preview thing. And after that we synchronize, and this is just going to block the thread, like whatever thread we landed on. And sync UI, it's going to come through here. Because we haven't clicked anything else while it's rendering, current render reg num is still going to be set to 1, like we set it to here. And our render reg num local to this function is going to be 1, which is what we captured here. So they are the same, so it's going to skip this continue block. And then it's going to update the preview image, hide the label, and go and set the current rendering number to -1 to indicate that it's done. Now let's work through the case that they actually did click a second one to make sure that makes sense. So say that this has already been clicked once and render reg num was 1 for that thread, and it set the current render reg num to 1. And now let's say that this came through while it's in that state. Somebody clicked a different one. So when it comes through here and the second click, it's still going to get the profile the same way. It's still going to show. This is going to be the next profile that they clicked. Preview loading label, show and bring to front. These are going to be redundant, so in this case they're already going to be shown and at the front, but it doesn't matter because I think both of those calls will just do nothing if it's already shown to the front. So that's fine to run a second time. Then in here we're going to come through. Now render reg num for this method frame is going to be 2 and cause the next one to go up to 3. And we're going to set current render reg num to 2. And then we're going to execute this task.run. So after that, sometime later, the first one is going to come through and actually complete. And when the first one completes, it's going to come through. It's going to get back here and check. So current render reg num is going to be 2, and our render reg num for that thread is going to be 1. So because it doesn't match, it's going to break out. It's not going to do anything. It's going to assume that a different one is going to actually complete executing this stuff. And then sometime after that, our number 2 is going to finish, come through here. Current render reg num is 2, which measures its thread, so it's going to continue and actually finish updating this stuff. Let's just run through one more mental example to make sure it still works. Maybe the first time you clicked one that takes a long time, and the second time, before it's finished, you click one that only takes a short time to run. So we could go in the order that first it calls through this to get our render number 1 started. And after that, it calls through this to get our render number 2 started. Then our render number 2 finishes first. So our render number 2 finishes first. This still makes sense because current render reg num is the one that it requested. So it does continue. It goes and updates the image and the hide, and it clears out the current rendering rec num. And then after that, render number 1 is going to finish, and it's going to call through here. And 1 is not going to, or this current render rec num by then is going to be -1, because we set it here in the other thread. So -1 is not going to be able to its rendering number, and it's going to break out. So I think that works. I think that's going to handle all the cases. Let's try it. So we're going to click around. As we're clicking, we should get this generate preview, and it should always end up on the last one that we clicked. So I click Twitch, Patreon, it ends up on Patreon. Click Twitch, does Twitch, click X banner, does X banner. Let's try that experiment where I start a long one and then do a short one. That's that last case we simulated. So like video frame is taking forever. So I could click video frame and then immediately click X banner, which takes shorter. And the X banner should finish first. And we want to make sure that after that, the video frame one doesn't come through and like replace it. So let's do click video frame, then X banner. We get the X banner. And the video frame one does not come through and replace it. Okay, so that seems like it's working nicely. And now it's safe for us to keep clicking these. Of course, it's going to be actually rendering them in the background, because we haven't passed through any cancellation token stuff. So if I go nuts with it, yeah, I can hear my PC taking off. If I go nuts with it, then it's going to create kind of a problem. It's stacking up a lot of RAM usage. I feel like something is not being released here. Some point I might want to look at it and figure out what that is. But it's not a huge priority right now. Either that, or it just doesn't care that it's stacking up that much memory. So now I've scheduled up like 1 million of them. Okay, and it still did the last one that I clicked, which is cool. Well, I'm interested if that process memory is ever going to go back down. I think there's some of those things like brushes or something that I'm allocating that I don't actually have any code to release. And I don't know if the garbage collector would just eventually run and release it or not. Okay, we'll worry about that later if it becomes an actual problem. For now, we got preview rendering working, which is pretty cool. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and check in that change. And just pop it up there to the GitHub. All right, we're all good. I'm going to take a short break, then I'm going to come back and continue with the next task. Okay, we're back here. So let's pick a task that we want to do next. To do the rest of this, I gotta think how I actually want to structure this guy. I've been thinking about changing the structure a little bit. Excuse me. So we can have, maybe in this profile render settings, I just want that to be the profile settings. Maybe I want everything in one of these JSONs to be editable. So basically this would just be a browser that lets you pick one of these JSONs and set all the relevant settings in it. And it'll have like a type section. So then you could use this thing to manage the JSONs entirely. And if we did it like that, we actually might not end up needing this configuration section where I was gonna like store settings for the whole thing. Because all the settings would just be baked into those JSONs. If we did it that way, we would lose the ability to save like a selection of which of these you actually want to do. And then we'd need some way, probably, if we're going to do it like that, make this a manager for the profiles. Oh yeah, I clicked around a bunch and now it spun up the crap. I need to figure out whatever memory leak thing is going on there. First, let me just do a quick Google on that. Do I have any general guidance on that? Explicitly called dispose on any objects that implement iDisposable when they're no longer needed. Especially bitmap, image graphics, and pen brush objects. So, do I need to call dispose on the bitmaps? Using bitmap equals this. Oh my god. That's so annoying. So it can't figure out that I don't need a bitmap? Well, maybe then the first thing I need to do here, this actually might solve the whole chunk of the problem. Let's say let's get the image that's currently there. We dispose it. Because obviously we can't dispose it while we're using it, because then it'll stop. It won't be able to actually display it. So then we're going to set it to null. And then in here, that means there's another thing we have to do. So this is where we gave up on a preview before we actually set it. In here, we need to make sure that preview BMP gets disposed immediately. So that, like, if you click one and then click another one, the first one is going to go and render and show back up here and see that it's not needed, then it'll just call dispose on it. The memory is stacking up really fast, so I think it's just those big-ass bitmaps. But that also probably means I need to go through all the code I'm doing, like all the different layers and stuff, and make sure I'm disposing of them as we go. Okay, so there our memory went up. Click video frame, memory went up. Memory went up. Ah, look, there it dipped a little bit. So now if I do that same thing, that I line it up a bunch of rendering tasks, we should see that after it completes some of them, the disposes get called and the memory falls back down over here. You guys, yeah, you can see it because I moved the chat out of the way. That's still 214. That might not be pushing the garbage collector enough to do it. Either that or these particular things I'm releasing are like not the biggest part of the problem. It's still stacking up a bunch. I'm kind of shocked by this. I'm kind of shocked that the garbage collector doesn't do yeah, it's eventually eligible for automatic garbage collection once it's no longer referenced. However, bitmap uses significant unmanaged resources. GEI handles native. It's crucial to explicitly. Okay. So the bitmap object wrapper gets thrown away, but it never deallocates the memory that it used for the bitmap unless you call dispose on it. That's really annoying. So how do we want to handle that? How do we want to handle that? So pretty much each of these different things that I was doing in here, each of these filters, generators, and the brand renderer all need to they all need to actually get rid of their resources when they're not done with them. They all need to call disposables. I don't want to go through here and try to remember to call dispose at the end everywhere, because that's really annoying. Yes, actually, this whole problem is really annoying. I wish it was just smart enough to know that when it garbage collects a bitmap object, it should release the memory. But there's other things in here, like pens and brushes and stuff all over the place. That need to get disposed. I could do like using everywhere, but if I do the using everywhere, I'm going to be like 8 levels deep in using statements for some of these things. So maybe what I want to do is have like a in our util, maybe we want to create like a this is not a super fun thing to code on stream, but hey, we're trying to make a program that works nice, so I guess we're just going to do it. I'll do like a disposal collector, like a disposer. That's a kind of a weird name for it, but doesn't matter. I'm going to make a utility class called a disposer, and its job is going to be internally. It's going to have a list of iDisposable called we're going to give it a list, and then we're going to give it an add method. Okay, and then at the end, we're going to go through, I'm going to give it a dispose all. And when we do that, we're going to go for each one. So a couple of things we need to check. Is there any way to know if it's already disposed? And check if it's already disposed by implementing the standard iDisposable pattern, which includes a private disposed flag and a public is disposed. So it should have. There is no iDisposed property. What the hell is it talking about? call the dispose method itself rather than methods such as close. Alright, different approach. Can we call dispose multiple times? Yes, generally safe to call dispose multiple times on an object. It's because standard pattern for implementing iDisposable is designed to handle multiple calls safely. Okay. Alright, so I don't have to worry about, so I just want to check to make sure it's not null. I just want to call the dispose. And then at the end I want to clear out the list because I don't want this object hanging on to any like garbage collectible, like preventing anything from getting garbage collected. Not disposable. I'm just gonna this items. Items. Item. Item. Item and items. Items null continue. Items. Those items to clear. Okay. Now, probably I could make this thing itself disposable. And then I could use using on it. Actually, instead of disposal, we'll just make this the way the dispose method works. So this is kind of like a helper container. So I guess the idea here is using disposer equals new disposer. And then as I go through and create stuff, I'm going to say disposer.add, disposer.add. And then at the end of the using block, it's going to call dispose on this whole disposer, which is going to loop through all the stuff I added to it and call dispose on all of it. And if I want something to live outside of the using block, then I just don't add it to the disposer. That might be the way to do it. This seems like such an obvious pattern that I'll bet there's like a standard Microsoft utility class that does this. But there's no reason that we can't do it. So let's start at the brand renderer and try to implement it like this. So inside render, at the very beginning, we're going to say we're going to create a new one. Then we want to put this one here. We want to put all of this code inside it. And then at the end, see how we're returning full BMP? So that means full BMP is the one thing that we don't want to add to the disposer. What's wrong with all this? Oh, because I just copied it and actually deleted it. Okay. So now it's complaining about duplicate variable names. Okay. And I think in the using block, so if I return out of a using block, it should still make sure, well, let's double check. Yes, if you return early from a using statement or block, the object will still be properly disposed. So that's the whole purpose of it, is now I can return anywhere inside this using block. Okay, so I want to make a note here. So we don't want to dispose that one. But for pretty much everything else, I don't think colors are disposable. Like noise filter. I guess I gotta make these filters disposable because they're gonna have stuff inside them that, like, after you get done using it, you don't want them to hang around. Well, as long as I'm making a pass through it, let's Yeah, maybe I'm doing this in the wrong order. Maybe I need to implement it in the filters and stuff first. So let's, because we're doing GDI stuff, I guess, let's make sure. Now let's start with the filters first. So iFilter is always going to be an iDisposable, and it just adds the apply method. So then any of our filters, we'll start with noise filter. It does what it does, then it's going to have a dispose. Man, this is really annoying. I guess this is the kind of stuff that wouldn't have mattered if I just kept it a console application that you run once. But now that I'm trying to make a nice user application that won't crash if you use it for a long time, I have to worry about it. Apply bitmap. This is the end of that method. Okay. So that satisfies the dispose interface. Alright. Application define task, freeing, releasing unmanaged resources. So when you get disposed, I guess does it have to have like a public disposer now? Or I just want to add the thing that comes out of it to the... I might have to do this. I might just make this manage disposable stuff internally and take the same strategy. So the thing that it returns, well, at the end, this one's applying to a bitmap. It's not returning anything new. So this one should just delete all the resources that it allocated after you run it. So let's just do the same thing in here. Put the whole thing in a disposer. Then put the whole method in there. And now what are we actually allocating here? So this is already using a G. Next double, You know, I did all this, but I don't think I actually have to. Messed up my formatting here. So here we made a disposer, but in this particular one, I don't actually think we're allocating any disposable stuff. Because we're just getting a color, computing a color, set pixel. Alright, well, so I'll wrap it in there by convention, but let's try the pixelate filter. This one I think has some stuff to dispose. Now I've been doing my graphics.image and using blocks, but those are kind of redundant because I could just add the thing to the disposer. So here we make a small bitmap. That one's going to have to go in the disposer. Now here's another thing. I would love to keep it so that we can just pass through a thing directly. I would love to make it so that we don't need to be like small BMP equals this and then disposer.add small BMP. So maybe in my disposer I can give it some nice kind of a method. So we have an explicit add, but we can also give it what would I even call that, like add, and I give it like a generic function that returns the kind of thing that I want to create. So you create T, and then that takes func of t so called thing to create it if I guess these have to be t has to be a disposable in the first place. Which also means it's a class. Then just return it. I probably have to specify that this is a class type. Okay, so there I can return null. Otherwise, we want to add the object to our disposable list. Oh, okay, there's a nicer way to do this. The object you got back is not null. You can add the object to our disposed list. Either way, return the object. Okay. So now, if we went back to like the noise pixelate filter, so where I create the small bitmap that's disposable, I could actually say so I could give it disposer.create, give it the bitmap. So now I've got my one line back. Disposer.create new bitmap. Create is not really the right. Maybe this is also add. Small bitmap equals disposer.add new bitmap small width small height. Okay. Because we're not going to return that one. So here we manage the graphics for the I guess we could reformulate that here. So like so we can get a drawing context for the small g. Wish there was like an even more like domain specific way that we could do that. I don't know if there's like a cooler way to do that syntactically, because it's kind of long. What if do I really have to call this thing disposer? What if I just called it like D? Or like call it like DSP by convention. We get a small bitmap, we get small g and large g, and here these could be small g dot, small g dot, okay, and this could be like large g dot, large g dot, g dot. So then I don't need these inner usings. You can use an inner using, it's just yeah, apparently I need to do this all over the place, so I might as well make it a consistent style. I'm going to put these back in the same order they originally came in. Okay. So now, when we exit this using block, it should get rid of the small bitmap, the small g, and the large g. The small g and large g graphics contexts were already getting disposed, but the small bitmap was not. Apparently that was just hanging around forever. Okay, no problem. Noise filter. We'll call this DSP by convention. I'm going to keep that around in here even though I'm not currently using it, so that if I start using it or copy code in there or whatever, it'll just work. And then our dark halo filter. Do we do disposable stuff in here? Yeah, like this brush. I think these brushes are disposable and I'm not letting go of them. So I've got the brush as a disposable. I've got this as a disposable. But other than that, I'm just doing like draw rect. I think it's just the brush and let's put all this stuff in there. Okay. Now random, half height, half width, we go together. So here I want to get, because this is, I think this one's disposable. Because I saw it used in using statements inside the like AI responses. So make sure the brush goes into the disposable thing. And then here, let me say, we can do that instead and take this stuff out of the inner using block. Like that. Okay. Okay. And where does this one end? What's that? Okay. Alright, so that should clean up the stuff in there. Now how about our generators? Oh, we only got 1,000,000 generators. So these I decided they don't need to be disposable by themselves. They're going to dispose their stuff except for the output. So these ones, yeah, I have to be careful to make sure that I dispose everything except the output, which is really annoying. So we'll put all that in the user. Line bitmap is the one that's going to go out. So we don't want to dispose that one. We can take a G out of its own using block again. So then we don't need this one. Okay, so then we're going to loop through. What are we going to do here? See, look, a solid brush that I'm creating in a loop. This is the reason that I wanted to manage it this way. So each time I go through and paint one of these different colored chunks on the line, I'm allocating a new brush. So I want to make sure here speed out, add a new solid brush. You know, it occurs to me, I don't really have to do this with the I could just say add this and have it return this. Oh, let me do that real quick. I mean, we can keep this form, that's fine, but we could also just make public t add t item t class not disposable items that IT return item. So that should still work also. So now if I went back through these, let's really all that changes is okay, noise filter, we didn't do it. Pixelate filter, where I do these. Now I don't have to add these so it's still gonna get a small bitmap. Okay, here I can get rid of that dressing. Here I can get rid of that dressing. Speed up add. Is add really the thing that makes sense, or should I call it like manage? That's fine. We'll just do it like that. Okay. Let's do the Dark Halo one. DSP. Redo ads. Now we don't need this. We don't need this. I think that's good. I don't think we're allocating brushes or anything else down here. Okay, so that should be fine. Now I'm going to go back to the line generator. I should be able to get, oh, hello. Got a little cat friend. You want to get up? You want to say hi to the camera? Meow. Oh, so now if I go back through here, I can disposer, okay. Get rid of these. And in here I can get rid of this. That's fine. I don't know why everything that comes out of this is nullable now. I guess it doesn't really matter. Okay, so that one's good. Let's go back to these. Oh my god. It's going to be so annoying to go through and do this. Let's get all of this. Put it inside there. Okay. So now out BMP is the one that needs to not get disposed. But everything else, now this G, I can do the same way and get rid of that level of indentation. I assume that's the one, yeah, okay. So now I can get rid of, what is this one there? I'll just start up here. Go through all this stuff and bring it out a level. Okay, so that's disposable line Y. Factor, font size, just math. The font is probably disposable. Probably need to free up font resources. And it should, if this is not disposable, then this thing should not let me call it because I specified that the type parameter has to be disposable. Okay, math. Brush is disposable. Okay, random. Are random generators disposable? Doesn't seem like it has a dispose method. Okay, let's do all this, chunk this, draw string. All right, so now those should be getting cleaned up. go through gradient generator. This one's got a brush that it sets at the beginning. Well, how the hell do I know when to dispose that brush? Because it gets hung onto from the beginning of the thing. If I define it in the constructor, it needs to still be alive down here. Like, I would have to actually make some of these whole objects disposable, which I don't really want to do right now. It's probably like a very small part of my memory leak problem, so I'm just going to leave that alone. Here, at BMP, let's just wrap it by convention. Then we can also get rid of our using. Then we don't need this block. Okay, return the bitmap. Okay, I generator. Yeah, I decided I'm not going to make them disposable for now. Size generator. This one has a reference to a bitmap as a source that gets passed in, but we could think that bitmap is owned by whatever called this, so it's responsible for disposing it. So we're not going to worry about that one. I'll wrap this in disposal shit. Outright rectangle. Rectangle's not disposable, right? It's like a struct. Oh. How did this get messed up? Okay. 0, 0, okay. Out bitmap equals new bitmap, this one. Make a note that we're not going to dispose it. We can change the G. Out BMP, right? Yeah. Get rid of that. Alright. And then the text generator. So here we probably are creating some stuff. So let's do let's put all of our stuff inside there. Alright, so dumb BMP. Why did I call it dumb BMP? Oh, the dummy one, because it's just used to measure the text. Okay. Because right, I gotta measure it to get the dimensions, and then I'm gonna create an output of that size. Well, so that one is definitely gonna be disposable. Text dimensions. Let's call this from image. Okay, so then here I'm gonna use G. All right, then we do math. Then we make this bitmap, which is gonna be our return. We could do. So then this one is going to be using BMPG. All right, that's fine. Now we're going to return the bitmap. So that should be good. Okay, I think that's all of our generators. So that's all of our filters and all of our generators that have been adapted. And now the big one left is just the brand renderer itself. So I wrapped the whole thing inside a disposer already. This one, I'll make a note that it does not get disposed. Graphics, from image, full bitmap. Oh, so here I've got tons of these usings inside. I want to change over all of those. I might just leave those alone for now. And just make sure I capture everything else. So full bitmap we don't want to dispose. Noise color, block size, we get a noise filter .apply to full bitmap. This one's going to clean up anything inside of it, like anything it needs during the apply. For the binary generator, also we call generate, that'll clean up anything needed inside. That gets its own using, so that's fine. Halo padding, dark halo filter is going to get set up here, but then we're not using it till later. Okay, text stuff. Here's font and solid brush need to be disposed. Oh, I didn't call it DSP up here. Okay, so DSP, I'll add the font, the new solid brush, and text generator we didn't make disposable for now. We call generate. Oh wait, did I miss an opportunity to do? Yeah, okay, so this binary bitmap, it does not get disposed inside here, but we want to make sure that it gets disposed before we leave the render function. Okay, so we're going to add the output of the binary thing to the binary generator to the disposable. We're going to do here also, make sure that we add the output of this text generator to the disposables. Then resize, what? Resize, what the hell is that again? Resize generator. You pass it in a bitmap and a scale. Oh, okay, that's right. I'm like shrinking it a little bit. The output of that definitely goes in the disposable. Then code's font goes in the disposables. Now the brush goes inside the disposables. Text generator doesn't, but the output does go into the disposables. We get here, pixelate filter doesn't need to be, and we just apply it. Noise color, noise filter doesn't need to be, and we just apply it. So in pixelator, just apply it. Code noise color, just apply it. Gray line stuff, that's just math. Color util. Noise filter, pixelate filter. So now the line generator, we add the output of that because we don't want to have to, we're not going to need that separately. And then this flip rotate thing, I assume it happens in place. Apply, apply, both clean themselves up. This one also, the codes line. We don't need to generate it. Okay, and here, I guess I'm going to continue to use my using G. What else do we create? Here we're just doing a bunch of math and we're just doing a couple of draw images, and apply here is going to clean itself up, so that's fine. Now the last one we do is the gradient. So we want to add the gradient bitmap, and then we're going to draw that onto, wait. Did this get messed up? Is that why I've not been seeing the gradient on the output? Somewhere along the line here. Oh no, never mind. G, okay, that's graphics context from the full bitmap. and then we draw onto that the gradient of that. No, so that's still correct. And then here we're going to return the full bitmap, which does not get disposed. So now places that we call the brand renderer, there is only one other place. So in the render manager here, if we tell it like render all, which we're going to redo this later, but just for completeness. So here we load the profiles for each profile. Render equals new brand renderer. Bitmap equals renderer.render. And we could probably do this one like as it's going through a line. Let's do bitmap.save. It's called dispose on it manually. That's fine. And then the only other place is in the new window that we were coding over here. And the app form. And here we already managed it. So we made it so that preview bitmap, if we come back and we didn't need the preview anymore, then we dispose it immediately. We made sure that if we go to refresh the preview and there currently is one, we dispose it first. So that should be all the disposing that we have to do. Let's see if that has any impact on the memory usage of the application when we click this a bunch of times. Well, first of all, it didn't crash. That's promising. So we're sitting here, memory. Let's get up a few renders. Okay, I saw more memory fall there. Spike, oh, it came back down. I'll try to click it around a bit more. Well, we're in a way more stable memory profile. Let's click it a bunch, so this should spin up a bunch of them in parallel. You can see it stacking up here. They should all be completing in the background. And it's wiggling its way back down. Okay. It's still not like all the way back down. I don't know if there's something that's not being disposed correctly. But we definitely cleaned it up a lot. We're sitting here. What is our memory value here? Does it tell me? 27 megabytes? We're like stabilizing around that. Yeah, because eventually after we get some, yeah, there it did a garbage collect. 26. Hey, look at that. We stabilized the memory footprint of the application. So now if I click preview a bunch, it kind of like spikes way up here. Then in the background, after they all get finished executing, then it knocks us back down. And we're just chilling at like, you know, like 20 to 30 megabytes. Okay, so that worked. Well, that's a great step. I'm going to go ahead and make that a commit on its own. Okay. Well, let's commit that. Push it up. Okay. Well, that was an annoying little adventure to go through on the side, but I like the fact that the memory is stable, so we're glad we did that. Yeah, we touched a couple heavier things in this episode. We had to reason about threads over here. We had to reason about resource disposal and what the garbage collector will and won't do for you over there. It's like a little bit more advanced topics than just drawing the bitmaps. Okay, so what were we even doing? What do we actually want to do with it after that? So should I start setting up these profile render settings? And what I actually want to go in there. I guess a profile settings, instead of this, I'm just going to call this profile. And it should just have all the properties inside one of these objects. And it can have some different property groups for specific types. That might be how we do it. Yeah, that might be how we do it. Okay. So let's try. This should probably start hidden again. Doesn't make a difference because it automatically selects one immediately. Look how nice that looks. We can stretch it out to actually take up the full space. That might be the next thing. I might want this to start maximized, because I like being able to see this, and then I have plenty of space for my settings over here. Yeah, let me rejigger how I want to do the default sizes really quick. So let's do, at first I was like, oh, we'll just make it a small window, but I like being able to see all this stuff. I think I want it to start maximized. Let's do like that. So up here where we started, I set the, instead of this, if I just like I'm gonna have to check how do you actually do this again. Maximize form, Windows state. Okay. So we want to start it to maximized. And then what we want to do over here is that, how did I compute my default space on the signs? Oh, I just hard coded it. So here for the default, we probably just want to do, it's going to be like 1920 minus whatever I want on the side. It's not guaranteed to start at that, but we'll, yeah, because it's going to mess it up if they start it in the smaller mode. By the time, because I changed the state, it should already have the new size here. I just have the width of the form. Like, would this already be updated? Minus like 400. And the left layout, I want the splitter distance, yeah, to be like 240 specifically. Oh, there's minus 100, must be enough. Okay. Okay, so we are going to set the client core size, but we're going to set it to, I think it's not going to get exactly that size because it's like the client size. Okay, this is what I expected. So now we pop it up, bam, you got big ass preview right in the middle. And you got settings over here, and you got your table up here. And that's what I want. And if you really want a lot of space for your table, you just stretch this guy down, and now you got all the space in the world to like load rows and scroll through and modify. And you drag this guy back up. Okay. That's a cool place to be in. This is the video frame when I did this the other day to make like the title of a video I was going to upload. And look at how nice the dark halo came out on this thing. It's so jagged around the edges. And you could see the multiple layers, like here's a layer, here's a layer, here's a layer. It would be cool to have like a full screen button for this this preview, like a maximize. Which I actually could code. I could have it just like take up the whole window. I don't want to mess with the preview anymore right now. I'm happy with what it's doing. We'll just start it like this. Oh, now it doesn't get smaller when I minimize it. Okay. So actually, I do want it to get smaller when I minimize it. I'm going to take this back to 1000 by 600. I'm going to set this splitter distance to, yeah, see by here, it has not updated the width. It's like requested to the operating system that the form be maximized, but it hasn't actually received the new width yet. I'm just going to hard code it to something that comes out nice maximized. 1920 minus 400 is like 1520. Let's call it 1500. Oh, that didn't work. Because it set it to 1500 when the thing was small and then it maximized it. I'm just going to start messing with numbers here. there one of these? Nope, that also messes it up. What if I just don't initialize it? So come up 50. Yeah, see, this is exactly what I don't want. I don't want it to default like that. So let's think of it like this, because it seems to want to scale it up in percentages, right? So if I start the thing at 1,000 pixels wide, and I want this thing on the side to be 400 pixels, then that means its width is like 40% of the total width, right? So if I, let's see, if I, well, but I don't want it to be that. I want it to, yeah, I want to calculate at the total size, so at like 1920, let's see. So the total size is going to be 20% approximately the width. I'm willing to ignore this little bit at the end. So if it's going to be 20% of the width, then maybe I can start it at 20% of the width I am starting at, which is 1,000, and which is 200, obviously. And it has to be the splitter distance like from that size. So that means I want to set this at like 800, right? 800 out of 1,000. Yeah, perfect. See, came up just the way that I want. And now when we scale it down, yeah, it'll shrink proportionally. That's fine. I don't think I can make it not shrink proportionally. It'd be interesting if I could give one of these panes like a size priority, so it keeps its size. Oh, let's ask about that. Use the fixed panel property and potentially the isSplitter fixed property. Shows a specific panel maintains its size when the parent container like the form is resized. I probably don't want to do that. I don't want to set that on the split container. Fixed panel equals fixed panel at panel. What the hell? Oh, maybe that is what I want. Preventing user resizing. Oh, isSplitter fixed. Okay. Do I want that splitter fixed? Do I ever want them to like shrink it down? That's a good question. Maybe I should set it to like a fixed size. Let's try that first one, honestly. So before I do this stuff, or maybe when I'm defining it, so on the left layout, okay, in the app layout, the side-by-side one, what would this look like that I do fixed panel? So sets which split container panel remains the same size when they're, oh, okay, okay. So I want panel 2 to keep its size. And if I did it like that, I'd probably want this one to start at 600, because when the form starts at 1,000, it's going to load this thing up and set the splitter at 600, which means there's 400 on the side over here. And then it's immediately going to maximize, and now I should have just told it to keep the 400. Is that going to work? Okay, we got the right size there. And we got the right size there. We kept 400. The reason I wanted to keep 400 over here, and the reason I might actually make it like fixed, is because I'm probably going to do some control layout over here, like, you know, like number here, number here, number here, or whatever. And if you like squish it, it's going to mess the whole thing up. So it should at least have like a minimum size. And probably just like should probably just have a fixed size. Probably this one should not be adjustable, and it's just this one that should be adjustable. So maybe I can just set that same property at the same time. How did that say that I do that? Split container one.is split. Oh yeah, it doesn't matter which one I set it on, because if you can't drag the thing in the middle, you can't resize either of them. So we're gonna use these two to lock the size of that right panel. Okay, so now I can't drag this one. It's gonna be whatever size I make it. And here I can't drag it. And if I resize, yeah, it's going to keep the size of that area on the left, and it's just going to stretch the other two. That's cool. And then I can keep this one flexible. So this is really the only degree of control you need. Alright, that feels good. So now I can like make it bigger, make it smaller, and not lose whatever layout I have for this stuff over here. Cool. So far so good. Now let's start actually adding some controls over there. Let me take a look what's in these JSONs again. The solution items, I put them. Profiles. So if we look at here, so each one's got a name. It's got a color theme. I think I'm going to change this to be called theme actually, because I named it elsewhere. I'll probably go through and make that change. Try to do better git commits. So let's go ahead and commit that. And then let's change this to be themes. Or change this to be called theme instead of colors, because I use that language in the table. First, let's just change it everywhere here. I'm going to call that theme. Theme. The theme. Oh, yeah. I'm going to call that the theme. We'll call this the theme. Okay. Then we're going to have to adjust it in our brand profile JSON. So this represents the things. Here, we're going to rename this one to theme wherever it gets used. So when it parses in, that should be a string. And then did that in our profile manager, and we load it up. So here, okay. JSON.theme out color profile. Okay. Okay, and then when I create the new brand profile, I want to call that theme. Oh, I'm here. I gave it theme. This is going to be. I'm okay with this being called colors because I'm going to say .colors this. So, but I want string to be the theme. So here, theme. Create a brand profile. Theme equals JSON.theme. Yeah, that's correct. Colors equals theme name. Oh, no. Okay. This is the actual colors object that I looked up. Try to get the colors object for the theme. Color profiles. Color themes. I think all that stuff's going to work. So, yeah, like a color thing is a totally separate thing. I haven't even contemplated if I want to make a color theme editable or allow you to manage color themes separately. But that's fine for now. So what do I want to do next? We rename that to be the theme. Does it still work? Okay, it still gets the colors. Cool. Let's keep that. Now, okay, we're going to start laying out that form on the side. So how do I want this to be arranged? It's like, what are some of our, let's go look at our properties over here. So we need a name for the profile. We need the theme for the profile, which can be select element. We need the type, which can be another select element. Then we need the width and height. And then we need the area of interest, which will have its own X, Y, width, and height. So that's the main things that we could edit right now. So let's just try to model out a form for that. Profile. What am I doing? All right. First, where we called this thing profile render settings, we're just going to call it profile. And then in here, call this the profile settings box. I guess that's fine. Let's think about how we want to lay it out. So like name can be one, and then it takes up the whole. Now let's make these all computed from like a particular width. I could lay it out with a big table control. That's probably the way to give it like reasonable sizes. And we could think of our table like it has 4 columns. And at the top, we could do like name is 1 column, and then the text entry stretches across 3 columns. And then beneath that, we could have theme label takes a column, theme selector takes a column. What was the other one? Other theme type label takes a column, and type selector takes a column. And then beneath that, you'd have X and X, like X label, X value, Y label, Y value. Or I guess that's going to be width and height. And then we have like a little area of interest chunk, which will be like AOI X, AOI Y, AOI width, AOI height. They could be done the same way. And then beneath all that, I'm going to have a separate element, which is like the type specific settings, which are going to change when you select different types. Like a window frame might have different ones, or a thumbnail might have different ones. Okay, let's set it up like that. So for that, I'm going to use... Oh, hi kitty. Cat came to visit me again. So let's create us a new table layout panel. So let's go, and then settings box, add the table. Okay. So this table is going to have How many rows are we gonna do? I guess we'll just add rows and columns as we go. So column count is going to equal 4. And I can go ahead and add, I guess, the 4 column definitions, which are all going to be like separated equally 100%. So okay, for each of those. Column styles, column style. And they're all gonna, I guess, yeah, each of the 4 is gonna get 25%. Or is it, this is the amount of the available space. I don't know if I want this to be 25 or if I want it to be 100. Row or column should be sized as a percentage of the parent container. So yeah, each of these columns should be 25% of the parent container. Then for the rows, I guess each of these are going to be like fixed width also, so I could do them in a loop. Hi, kitty. I know you want attention. Let's count these up. So the name, type and theme, width and height, AOI X and Y, AOI width and height is 5. And then depending on how I want to model it, the last one might go into a big table row. Yeah, I think that's how I do it. The last one will probably go into a big table row, so I want a 6, and that one is going to be set to percent 100%. The other ones are going to have a shared height. Yeah, okay. So we got 6 rows. Plus plus. Row style. Like we talked about before, we're not even going to mess with trying to let this table like compute some of its rows height from its children, because it just becomes a big mess and it doesn't work. So absolute size, let's say we start each of these at like 40, but that's probably going to end up being wrong. I think that's going to be too tall. We'll put elements in there and then we'll see what height we want it to be. And then at the end, table at row styles, size type dot percent. We'll get a last one that takes 100% of the remaining space down to the bottom of the container. So then as we go, there's going to be at least one of these that's going to end up getting, the width one is going to get extra columns. We'll do a column span on that. But here's another BS thing about this table thing is you'd think, ideally, you would want to be able to specify at the beginning, like, hey, there's going to be a cell here, and I want that cell to stretch across these 3 columns. But you can't do it until you add an element to it. I'm pretty sure that's the way it works. I think you have to actually add the element first, then you have to tell it this is the number of columns to span for that element, which means you can't specify it until you have added an element to it. So we'll probably have to do that later. So now let's go and make some, I probably want a couple helper functions for this, because I don't want to, if I have some kind of style or like little settings that I give each of these things, I don't want to write them over and over. So let's make that create field label. There's a create field label, then it'll be like, what is a text field even called? Text box? text field. And then we're going to want, there should be a way to constrain it to numbers. I'm going to call it number field. Combo box, I think. Create a combo field. So here, probably, I just want it to be like strings. Here, do I want it to have like defaults? I don't know. I might pass it in like constraints, like minimum and maximum or whatever. We'll get there when we get there. So, create field label. Create a new label. And I'll return them at the end. All of these are going to be docstyle.fill because each of them is going to fill the cell that I place it inside of. I'm going to set it to the text that we created. Then we're going to do, for a label, because the label is going to be on the left and the thing is going to be on the right, I kind of want to left align the text in the label. Middle left. Okay. I should be able to have whatever its default font and background are. Let's start with those. For a number field, probably not the one. For a string field, yep, start with that. Gonna give it that again. I don't think I'm gonna have it pass values into these when I create them, because I'm gonna create them all one time up here, and I'll have a function that goes and populates them. That goes and reads them, and a function that goes and sets them when you click a thing. So that's fine. And I don't know what other properties I want to set on this yet, so I'm just gonna have it do that. This one also, I don't know what other properties I want to set on it yet, so I'm gonna make it do that. This might take like a maximum length in characters. Then for our create select field, I guess we just need the list of string options, but I'm gonna have to map the strings. Okay, that's not always a great way to do it. Sometimes you have some set of objects that each have a name, and what you really want to pass it is your list of objects that can be selected, and you want the control to figure out like how to display the name for each object. I think in this case it's sufficient to just give it a list of strings, because say like for the profiles, or what are our two things that we're configuring? Types and themes. So there's a set of themes that each have a specific string name, and there's a set of types that each have a specific string name. So it's probably sufficient to just let them pick the string, and then I'll read it out and deal with it after that. Okay. So let's do here for the combo. Actually, I haven't used the combo box in here yet, so I don't know exactly how it works. I assume it's going to be something like that. I know I wanted to have that. Now, how do I put options in it? Combo box.items, the AI thinks. It's an object representing the collection of items contained in the combo box. Object collection. How does this work? I'm just going to see what the AI says. By adding manual items, binding to a list of objects. So I guess that's the case that I was talking about before. So you could just add strings. That's one way to do it. And you could make an array of your strings and add it. Binding is objects. You make a combo box item class. And you can go through and give them these. And display member is text. Okay, and value member. So that would be the next most elaborate way to do it if I had something more complicated. I'm just going to go and look up the property on your thing named text using reflection and the property named value using reflection. That's cool to know that I can do that. I don't have any reason to do that right now. So for now, I'm just going to do, yeah, I'm just going to give it the whole list that you passed in. Okay, it's good enough to start. So now I'll start laying out this form. It'll just be like, create a field label. I'm going to say, do we want to pass it? Each of these, if we want, no, that might be too specific. I was going to say we could actually pass each one the, like the table and the column and the row and column to put it at, instead of making them separate function calls after each one. So our name label, I'm going to pass it that, column 0, row 0. And this one in particular, well, the name one actually we don't want. Oh, do I not have, oh, create string field, I call it. Create a string field. So now we have to add this to the table. Name field, it's going to be column 1, row 0. And then there's some method on here that I call, oh, come on, table dot set column span of the name field. I want it to span 3 columns. I want to have 1 column of label and then 3 columns of text field. Does that show up? How are we looking so far? Before I get a lot further with this. Okay, it does show up. So we got profile here. We got a thing over here. Now I kind of wanted, you know, I must have meant to right align this. Let's right align it. It said middle left. It should be middle right. There's actually loads of space to do this here. Okay, now what is up with that? How come it feels so like poorly centered? Oh, you know why? It's because the actual background of this thing is huge. Let's see if we can visualize it so we can adjust the size. The whole thing is a back color. I'm going to do it to the label for now. This is not going to be permanent. It's just to help me visualize what I'm doing. So for the label, I'm going to say just going to make it red. So this, now we'll be able to see how far, yeah, see how tall this thing is? It's centered in terms of that. This field also is trying to be centered in terms of that, but it doesn't, I guess, know how to stretch its height. It just wants to be a text field height, which is fine. So to fix this, I'm gonna adjust the size of the column. So I said earlier 40 is going to be too high. So try like 24. That's much more appropriate. Now it's almost like a little bit too small. What about like 30? That might be too much. Let's try like 28. Should put it another 2 pixels down. Okay, that looks nicely landed. Cool. So each of these rows are going to be 28. Now we can take out the color again. Cool. All right, that looks fine. So profile, and then the text that's going to go in there. I guess I even have space to just call it profile name. Thought it was going to be too big of a label. Okay, so let's do these. So row 1 is up there. Now row 2, we're going to get, so row 2 is going to be the type and the theme. Type. Okay, what am I doing? It's column 0, but row 1. You know, I kind of do wish that these would optionally take a thing, because I don't want to. It's going to get so annoying to like specify all this crap. Alright, let's do that. Can have you take optional table and optional I'm just giving them default values so that I can choose to not specify them if I want to create one without doing all this. And then okay. These ones I do want to make nullable because I want to be able to separate between a number that you pass it. Or I could just make them negative ones. That's fine. Alright, that's fine. So when we create this field label here, I'm gonna have to wrap up to go in a little while, maybe another 30 minutes here. So now if we have this, now let's make another helper function. Add to table. It's going to have take an arbitrary control. It's going to take all of these extra parameters. And then it's going to handle all this crap. So it's going to say table dot roles.add control call row, and then if call span is greater than 0, then set column span to port control to call span. If row span is greater than 0, set row span control to row span. Okay. table. Okay. This one really shouldn't take null. By the time you get here, you should have to have a table. And also should at least have a column and a row. And these two can still have default values. Okay. So here we're going to say if table is not null, add to table, label, call row, call span, row span. Okay. Alright, so now we do that inside here. What's wrong with this? Oh, I need to pass the table. Okay. So if table is not null, then add this thing to the table. Down here, before I return it, if table is not null. Oh, I didn't even pass the parameters here. I'm gonna have to pass all this crap to each of these ones. That's okay, it's gonna be worth it. It looks like it's super annoying and it's dirtying up my code, but I promise you it's gonna be worth it. Well, why does it have a problem with label now? Ambiguous between system of... Did I import some crazy shit? Why am I system.reflection.emit? Okay. So now each of these, okay, yeah, if table's not null, then add that to it here. If table is not null, then add this to it, and here. If table is not null, add the combo box to it. Okay. Now what's wrong with these? System Windows form and system visual styles visual. What the hell got added in here? I have no idea why it's trying to do that. Okay. So now here where I was doing all this crap, instead of this, I can literally just say profile name, and that's going to be table 0, 0. And then I can say create string field, and this I'm just going to pass it. Column 1, row 0, call span 3, and leave the last one blank. And here we don't even need to capture the references to these. I will, well, yeah, we do want to, at least for the fields, I want to capture the references to them. So I'll have a section up here at the top where I have all of my settings fields. Labels I don't want, but like text box. Profile name field is going to exist. One of the other ones I want. Profile type field. Profile theme field. Profile width field. Profile height field. Then we want to do the AOI ones. Those are all going to be text boxes. AOI Y field, AOI width field, AOI height field. Okay. So now we're going to keep references to those when we create them. The labels I don't need. So this is going to be capture profile name field. And now I don't need these. That's just going to be nice about it. So I can set them up like this. In fact, probably now it's going to be compact enough that I don't even need these row comments. Alright, so we don't need to save a reference to the type one. Create field label type. Label 01. We don't need to do this. Oh, then we can say type field, create select field from a list of, somewhere up here I need to get my options. So how am I gonna get the full list of enum values? Enum.getNames type of your enum. String of all that. Okay, cool. Wait, is there a way to do this with a generic type parameter? Yeah, there is. This gives me back an array of strings. Do I need this one to be a list? Oh, that's fine. I can just pass construct. A list of string from. No, actually, I want to convert it up there. New list of string from brand types. Type options, table. This one's going to be column 1, row 1. No span stuff. Theme. This is column 2, row 1. And profile theme field. Select fields. Theme options. Table 3, row 1. Okay. How am I going to get theme options? Where do these live right now? It's not here. It's in the profile manager, the render manager. Where did I put that list of colors? The profile manager has to load it. Color util.color themes. Public static read-only dictionary. Okay, so then I should be able to use that. Over here, I should be able to get theme options equals color themes dot keys dot list. Now we should be able to pass that in there. Okay. Now let's see how that's looking so far before we do all the others. Alright, so far so good. It's kind of a weird style with the missing like border color on the text. Oh, that's not right. System.co, what the fuck is this? They should be strings. Type options, theme options. Something is not right about that. Oh, that it's trying to, okay. Something about the combo box items. the fact that these are strings. Let's try this a different way. Maybe it only understands that it's a string correctly if you collect the individual add. Items.add option. Does that get it to work right? Like, does that special case that it's a string? Yeah, there we go. Okay. So type, banner, profile, desktop, frame. Cool. And then theme, frame, X, YouTube, Twitch, Patreon. Very nice. I don't like how this thing is missing its proper border color. Does not have a direct border color. Controlled by the operating system's theme. Place the text box inside a panel control. Bro, I'm not doing that. If it's going to be ugly, it's going to be ugly. I don't really like it. You can type in these? I don't really want you to be able to type in them. Alright, we'll just keep going from there. So basically that's working. And now we can go and define the rest of the form this way. This is going to be 0, 2. Create number field. 1, 2. Down. You can do a similar thing for height. It's gonna be 0, 1, 2, 3. File height field. Is that working normally? Yeah, it is. It's just these ugly. Why would they do this? Why would they make it so that this has a border all the way around and this doesn't? I'm sure there's not like a text box does not have properties that apply for it. No, it is doing it. Let's go 1 pixel high control like a labeler panel immediately below a borderless text box. No, it's driving me crazy. Wait, we have border style. What are our border style options? Let me create a text box. Fixed single, a single line border, fixed 3D, 3-dimensional border, or none. What does fixed 3D look like? No, didn't change it. Maybe what I want is the other one. Maybe I want it to be fixed single. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So now we've got an actual normal border on the text field. So let's do that for the other one too. Alright, there we go. Still now it's bugging me that these aren't quite the same color. I don't know what they were thinking when they were designing all this. But let's we'll live with it for now. Okay, now let's just finish adding out the AOI ones. I'm gonna put these in groups like this. The profile name is the row by itself. Type and theme are a row by themselves. These two are a row by themselves. Keep the numbering in line with what the table thinks. 1, 2. Now, let's do this pattern for AOI with, let's see, here. This is row 3, this is row 4. This one's going to be AOI X 0, 0, 3, 3, 3, 3. These ones are going to be 4, 4, 4, 4. So AOI X, AOI Y is going to be AOI width, AOI height. Okay, and then here I'm going to do this profile. This is going to be AOI X field. This is going to be AOI Y field. This is going to be AOI width field. This is going to be AOI height field. Okay. So row 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the last one that we do is going to be like for the, we can go ahead and just put a group box in there for the type settings. Like make ourselves one of those. Set it to fill. Then we're gonna give it a text. I guess this is gonna be named whatever type you have selected setting. So like settings, for example. Then we're gonna add that to the table and give it row call span of 4. So that's gonna go add the type settings box at column 0 and row 5. Set column span is going to be of type settings box is going to be 4. So it's going to stretch across all 4 columns, and this fifth, 6th column that we made is going to stretch to the bottom of the form, and that should take up the rest of the area. Okay, it did do that. It made a group inside here, if you can see it, like a banner settings group here. So okay, there we've got some basic settings loaded up. Now maybe the very last thing I want to try to do today is make it so that when you select one of these things, it populates the properties. Oh, I forgot clicking around makes it render a bunch. But now that it cleans up the memory, that's not that bad. I'm just going to spin up the CPU for a minute. Okay, so let's see if we can load those values. We've got the values parsed and loaded out of the JSON. We just need a function. So, okay, we've got a refresh preview. Maybe we want one that's like fill profile. Set profile info. And this one we can actually just go through and set the stuff. So sure, if profile equals null return. I guess that shouldn't really happen. Maybe there'd be a reason you wanted to set everything empty. I'm not gonna mess with that for now because I got limited time. So for now, I just want profile name field dot text profile name, yeah, just like this. Profile type value dot text, I guess it is. Selected item probably is what I want to set. Selected item equals profile theme. These are text fields, but I'm treating them for numbers. I'm going to go later and see if I can put a constraint on the field entry so you can only type numbers in there. Profile.width. Okay. I have interest.x. That. AYX, AYY, AY width, AY height, X, Y, width, height. All right. So we already made this thing up here. So that when you click a profile, or when one's selected, it like refreshes the preview, right? No, I'm getting lost in the sauce. Where is it? Up here. Here, okay. So we just gave it a function. This, I'm actually gonna call a function. On profile selected. I could have it look up the profile right now. What does he have? I don't know. I don't think it's helpful. But this business that I did earlier for the selected, to get selected profile, let's call that in here. So let's do that here. Let's say, so call our get selected profile. We're going to call the listener with our selected profile. So then we can concentrate all the stuff that we do in here on profile selected 1. So we're going to refresh the preview. But before we do that, we're going to just to give it some protection. I'm going to set the profile info. Otherwise, Well, let's do it like this. It's a little bit goofy, but profile is null, then just create an empty one. Is there anything in here that's going to blow up if I do that? That's not going to have colors object. It's not going to have an area of interest object. Non-name should be, all those are going to be nulls instead of empties. Sure, let's just get us a little of all the defaults, which are going to be name, new profile, and type dot profile. There's a different meaning of profile. Banner, I guess. Theme is going to be X just for fun. Color util dot themes X. I just happen to know that one exists. There's probably a better way to get a default one. So 0, 0. All right, so now we can create a blank one if for some reason we come through with a null one. And actually, now instead of doing that here, I want set profile info to be allowed to take null. You can take nullable, and here we're going to say if profile is null. And we create a blank profile. Alrighty. Hey, look, it worked. Except this didn't work. We didn't get the type. We got the theme selected. When I click one, yeah, it changes all the stuff over here. Width, height, AOIX, AOIY. I almost wish there was like a separator there. I don't know if I care enough about that to like. Yeah, that could be a future task. I don't think I care enough about it right now. AOIX, AOIY, AOI width, AOI height. Okay. 1920 by 1080. That's why it takes forever. The YouTube banner 2560 by 1440. That's why it takes forever. These are all type banner except for the frame. Now the only thing is it's not. What's going on with that? All right. Last thing to fix up right now. Why? Selected item equals. Oh, because this is this type is a brand type. This theme is a string. It's the string theme name. But this is the brand type. So I need like a. So get the name, the string name of that enum value. There we go. So now we got banner here. And now I select video frame, then it's got frame here. Okay, so it's pretty cool so far. Today we got this preview loading up down here, and we made it nice and thread safe. And we spent some time in the middle to go through and actually manage down all of our resource allocation. So that when we're rendering previews over and over and doing stuff, we don't, like if I smash this to keep making me a million images, it's going to do them in the background. You can hear the PC spinning up, but then it's going to throw away its unused resources for each one. Sounds valuable to get set up. And then we defined a little bit of this profile settings over here so that now we actually have a little form that sees these things from the JSON and enters them. And we'll give ourselves the ability to like save it. We'll probably put some other types of settings down here that aren't, probably give this like a scroll bar so that if I make this container really big, like you can fit everything. And yeah, so far so good. It's coming out. All right, let's check this in as usual. So like add form fields for profile values. All right, commit that, push it up. Let's go check and make sure that we got all these in our GitHub. In this branding repository. Over here we got our app. Well, let's just look at the commits. Mm, 13 commits. Okay. So this is our big annoying commit to go and fix up all the resource disposal. Rename colors, tiny one. Okay, seems like it's all here. Went through and added a bunch of fields, built up a table with all the fields, set values in the fields. Cool, very cool. Yeah, this code's all on the GitHub. It's free. Go check it out. Okay, well, until next time, I'll do a little bit more.